My introduction to Tinder was actually from the documentary The Tinder Swindler. So that was my introduction to it. So it was just like a big cautionary tale, if anything.
hmm
So for Tinder, I see it as from what I get, it's swiping left or swiping right if you like a person or don't like a person.
Yeah.
That's
So swipe left if you don't like the person, swipe right if you do like the person.
okay.
And Bumble works the same way too. So there's this methodology is kind of being adopted as like, yeah, dislike is send it away to the left, like is to send it to the right.
Oh, and then does the person know that you like them, or is it until they hit you with a like too, and then it's like, oh, bing, bing, it's a match.
So now these dating apps have created sort of paywalls where if you pay, you can see who likes you beforehand. But the traditional way, we can call it, or the free way often is you don't get to know who likes you until you've swiped on them. And then if you swipe right, saying that you like them and they've also swiped right, like you're in agreement that you find each other attractive, then they'll say it's a match and, connect you in a little chat room essentially. Um, yeah.
'Cause I saw a story. I don't know if it was more of a clickbait or a sensational kind of title, but it was like $1,000 plan on Tinder, something like that.
Um, I would believe it. I have not, I don't usually recommend Tinder in my work.
Yeah, man.
So I haven't researched that, but I I wouldn't be surprised. I mean, it's a very yeah, at a corporate level, dating apps are becoming very interesting.
It's very lucrative, I guess, because you're dangling the possibility. I mean, you search on 3 continents for it. You're dangling the possibility of your true love, your soulmate, whatever it may be, in front of a person. And the older we get, we feel like we have to find a person. What's wrong with us? I haven't found the person that can put up with me. We start feeling the pressure. Sometimes in family, because my background is Mexican, Native American, and with my culture, I see it a lot. If you don't have kids by the time you're 25, it's like something's wrong with you.
Right.
And
Yeah.
I can't even complain as a guy because the pressure is 10 times more when you're a woman in my culture. Because it's like if you're ambitious and you're working towards your career, or you're going to school or grad school, like what's wrong with you? Why aren't you
Mm,
having kids yet? Like I have a
yeah.
friend that she's always competing with her sister. Older sister is a housewife. She went down that path. Good for her. She's a housewife. She has kids, and she's doing like a postgraduate school, like in a PhD. And her
Mhm.
mom just tells her like, "Yeah, that's fun and everything. But your sister has kids already. Like, why don't you have kids yet?" Now?
Yeah.
I mean, I don't want to put accomplishments on a scale, but getting a PhD, it's kind of a big deal too. Obviously,
Yeah.
having kids is amazing. Raising kids, having a married life, it's awesome. But getting a PhD, you're not slacking away and wasting your life. I would imagine.
Right. Yeah, exactly. And I think a lot of that, what you're talking about, stems from this kind of i- an outdated fear, we can say, that like women are going to miss their fertility window. And the truth is, like, living in America, okay, our birth rates are not the most amazing in the world, but we do have the medicine. Like, we do have the capability for women to be giving birth to babies like much later, right? Like your 40s, right? So we're not talking like your 20s are the best time to have a baby anymore. It's like you could easily have healthy children in your 40s. So there's kind of this lag that I think is happening in terms of like there are these values of like start family as soon as you can. Like it's just, you're 18, like leave your house, get married, like start a family. Um and yeah, there's kind of this like, oh yeah, like everyone has a different life path or, has different values that they're bringing to the forefront, and having a PhD is probably just as good as having a baby.
Yeah, I mean,
But
yeah,
so it brings you personal fulfillment, honestly.
yeah.
And having, like waiting until later doesn't negate the fact that you could also become a parent later in your life. Um, so Yeah, we're at kind of an interesting crossroads where there's, like, there's a little catching up maybe to
Yeah.
do in terms of,
Yeah,
like,
because
what's
I'm
most
also barely learning. I have someone scheduled for the day on the topic of egg freezing, and I think
mm,
that's hitting what you're talking about as far as, it being prolonged, the time which you can have a kid
yeah,
or
totally.
yeah. So, what is your way? I think it's more the pressures that we succumb to in ourselves, society, like that. And
Yeah,
okay, I'm rambling here. I want to get into you. Sorry.
okay.
So before
I like this rambling, it's good.
when we started recording, you were just like, "Let's go ahead and start recording." As far as so on, but we were talking about up there, like you, the way you were searching for love. Was it developed from like the growing up watching princess on Disney kind of fable mythology, or what was it that, or you needed a person? Was it just companionship in general, or were you under the princess impression of it all?
I think probably a little bit of both, we could say. I was raised in a way that I was not allowed to watch TV, and I definitely was prohibited from watching Disney princess movies, for example, because my mother, her version of feminism was that I should not take on any of that, right? It was like,
Okay.
for her, it was like I should not need a man. I should not, identify at all with being a princess. So, I had, exposure to fairy tales for sure. So there was still some of that, and of course, romantic comedies, right? Like as I reached adolescence, like no longer just doing what my mom wanted. um,
Of course.
Romantic comedies were like a big part of growing up, right? And in the early 2000s, as you probably know, like they were they were the big thing.
Yeah, I think we're in the same ballpark as
We are.
far as stuff that we saw growing up.
Yeah, exactly. So, you know, that is not quite a fairy tale necessarily, but it does perpetrate a little bit of the same story in terms of like, oh, you're a woman just living your life, and then if you're a straight woman, right? You're a straight woman living your life, and then some man comes into your life through some mayhem, and then
Mhm.
because he wants you so much, you overcome all the odds and you guys get together. Like that's like what love is. um and I was also in a really small school, right? Like I had a nice weird upbringing, so that also helped me.
So it was like a small town kind of vibe. Like,
It was in a big city, but it was a private art school essentially.
okay.
So I went to school with essentially the same males, like the same guys from the time I was 6 years old. So 6 to 12, I was with the same kind of essentially all of them, the same men.
Yeah.
Um, and, uh, that didn't lead to a lot of, like, dating options or whatever, but at the same time, like, I just wasn't a person who was kind of considered very attractive, I guess, or that was my perception of myself. And so, like, you know, at that time when it's like teenagehood and everybody's getting a boyfriend and getting a first kiss, like that was not happening for me,
Yeah.
right? Like, I was not experiencing that. Like I wasn't getting that. What I perceived was like normal teenagehood in terms of like you have your first boyfriend or you have your first like little crush that is whatever. Um, I did not get to have that. So, then I went abroad, as I was saying, and just kind of hoped that, like, being out in the world would, like, change it for me. Like, I'd finally somewhere in the world find someone who found me attractive. Um, but I brought a lot of that rom-com essence to it, like, I really wanted to find someone who just thought I was so attractive that, like, they would go to the end of the world for me, right? Like, it would just be so obvious that we were meant to be, that, like, we couldn't not be together,
Yeah.
if
Yeah.
that makes sense. Yeah, and that story just, it perpetrated in my life, and when, I had so many iterations of it because it did not work out that way. I did not find this man who just wanted to be with me unconditionally, and, And that, I mean, that continued into my late 20s too. So, my journey to becoming a dating coach was very much fueled by an attempt to kind of overcome uh, that pattern that I had, I guess, of just attracting casual relationships or not attracting positive attention, feeling often very bad about myself and, um, what was possible for me, like, oh, the men I like are never interested in me or starting to date someone turns out they're not emotionally available, like just over and over these kinds of things that were just very disempowering. Like they just felt really kind of like at worst heartbreaking, right? Like getting some major heart smash in and then sort of on a lighter note was just kind of like disappointing, just over and over, like disappointment. Um so, yeah, it was, I would say it was fueled by a lot of things. It was fueled
Yeah.
by many things. But definitely the things I learned in childhood did not set me up for great success.
Flow on the